decided to stop using loops so much. So you launch your DAW, open up your piano roll, and you have no idea what the f to do. I've been there more times than I care to admit, laying down random notes in a scale until I accidentally come up with something that I like, not knowing what sounds to use with what, trying to watch complicated music theory tutorials.
Yet another reflection of the dominant 7th chord is the equally frighteningly named tritone substitution, which is just
What the fuck? So you get frustrated and go back to doing what you always do. But that ends today. I struggled with the exact same things you did, but I managed to turn it around using a 4-step process that will have you making better melodies today. I've had my samples used by thousands of producers across the world, and following these steps took my melodies from this to this. And we're also going to use these steps to create our own melody. So lock in with me. Let's get it. Now, music theory has always scared me, and that's because I'd always try jumping in the deep end and learning the most complex shit, which would just confuse me and put me off it altogether. Luckily for us hip-hop producers, we work almost exclusively in the minor scale, and I'm gonna cover everything that you need to know about it for today. Alright, so I'm gonna open up a piano, and first let's choose a root note. The root note is the base of the chords and notes you'll be using in your melody. Think of it like the root of a plant. It's the base that supports all the other notes in your chord. The other notes are like leaves and shit. If we want to visualize all the notes in our scale, we go to view, scale highlighting, and just for the sake of Kendrick, we're going to go for A minor. Pause. Now let's start off with steps. Let's imagine the piano roll is a staircase. Going from A to B is taking a full step up the stairs. So it's what we call a whole step. But in between this whole step is what we call a half step. This is the formula for the notes in the minor scale, regardless of what your root note is. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. You don't need to memorize this or anything, but it's just so you know. Now, an interval is just the distance between two notes. So if our root note is A, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it starts again from A. Now, when I'd hear people talk about diminished 6th chords and inverting the 3rd and all that, I had no fucking clue what they were on about. But lucky for me and you, it's actually mad simple. Let me show you. When we combine other notes over our root note, there are a few terms that we can use. So let's lay down a note at A. Now if we layer another note over this, which is B, this would be a major second, as it's one full step above our root note. If we were to drop this down one semitone, this would be a minor second, as it's one half step above our root note. This A sharp is out of the scale, but sometimes you can use notes outside of the scale to add tension, usually one semitone above the root note. This C would be a minor 3rd, as these are 1, 2, 3 half steps apart. And if we play A and E, this would be called a perfect 5th, as it's the 5th note in the scale. Now if we interchange these notes, we can create a sad vibe. So let's go from a 5th to a 3rd to a 2nd to a 3rd again. Now, a lot of this stuff you're probably already doing without really thinking about it. But once you know the purpose behind these notes, it becomes easier to go for a specific vibe when you want to. All right, now these two notes are what we'd call a dyad chord because it has 2 notes. But if we skip one note in the scale, lay another one down, skip one note in the scale, lay another one down, that's what we call a triad because there's 3 notes. So to make a triad chord, all you got to do is just skip every other note. If we've chosen the root note of A, the bottom note doesn't always have to be A. We could hold shift, copy this over, go down to like E, and it will still be in the scale. Also, if we want to, go to the stamp tool, select the chord we want, minor, we can just go like this. If we try to do it again, it's just gonna lay down one note. So if we want to, we can go back to the stamp tool and tick off only one. Now we can go to minor, go bam, bam, bam. Now if I were to take this note from C to B, this wouldn't be a minor 3rd anymore. It would be a suspended 2nd chord because we've used the 2nd note in the scale in between the root note and the 5th note. We can also do the root note, the 4th note in the scale, and the 5th note in the scale. This would be called a suspended 4th chord because instead of this 3rd chord, we're using this 4th chord. Suspended just means we replace the 3 in a chord with either the 2nd note or the 4th note. Hopefully that makes sense. And these are really good for building up tension. Whenever you have 2 notes in the same scale, a half note apart, it sounds sad and builds anticipation for the next note. If you want to make dark melodies, these are essential. Now I know this is a lot of information to be taken in, but it's definitely worth knowing. Otherwise you're just putting down random notes and hoping for the best. Once you learn these basics, you'll be able to make dark melodies without even thinking about it. What I'd recommend is just writing this down as you watch it, and it'll stick more in your head. Now with inversion, you take the lowest note of the chord and you move it up or down an octave while keeping the other notes the same. So we can use that to add some variations to our chords. Then we'll invert this root note, copy these over, turn this last note back into a triad, make this one a suspended fourth. Now rhythm is what sets apart boring, robotic melodies from ones that slap. If a melody has your head bopping before you've even laid down the drums, you're golden. Let me show you a few techniques to add rhythm to your melodies. The main thing we have to keep in mind is to leave space in our melodies for the drums. We don't want to make our melodies too complex and busy. We need to focus on bounce, like this. Now we've got a piano here, but let's right click and clone it. Now we'll Control A to select the whole pattern, then we'll hit Alt A. This opens the arpeggiator. Easy top line. Sounds basic, but you can use that as a base to start from. We can adjust the time multiplier for more notes. And the gate also to change the length of these notes. Next, we've got strumming. Now we can Control A our notes again, hit Alt S. And this offsets the start of the notes, and it gives the notes a more human feel. This sounds good with pianos or guitars. We can also go in, hit this magnet and turn it to none, and manually adjust the timing of these notes so it sounds even more human. Because human beings make mistakes, and that's what makes things sound more organic. Now let's just lay down some bass notes quickly. We can play with the velocity of our notes to make our notes sound more realistic and expressive. For example, if these are too high, it's just drying out the melody, so I usually drop the bass notes quite a bit lower. Next we can grab these notes and hit Alt R, and this will just randomize the velocity. Also, a little bonus tip, by default we can only resize notes from the right, so if you go to this drop down arrow, go to edit, we can turn on allow resizing from the left. Now we can do it on either side. We can also try adjusting the grid with this magnet menu. We can use this to add notes of various sizes to our melodies to play with the bounce. Sound selection and the right VSTs can transform your melodies from this to this. Now, sound selection is something I had trouble with for a while, but what's helped me out a lot is having a specific direction for my melodies when I'm starting out. Now, I don't mean knowing exactly what the melody is going to sound like, but I mean knowing the overall aesthetic that we want to achieve with it. For example, if I know I want to make something dark and orchestral, I know strings, pianos, and organic instruments would be the best sounds to use. And if I wanted to make some south side and future type melodies, I'd go for more synthetic, synthy, digital sounds. There's really no way to be taught sound selection, it'll just come to you with time. And when it comes to mixing melodies, I like to keep things simple. EQing each sound so their frequencies don't clash, not using too many sounds, some light panning, and adding some distortion and saturation here and there. You'll see my process for this when we make our melody from scratch. Now I know money is definitely a big barrier when it comes to making samples, so here's a list of my favorite affordable and free VSTs, and here's a list of the more pricey ones I use often. Do not be afraid to use accents and phrases made by other producers. It's not cheating, they can be a great source of inspiration to level your melodies up. The only thing that matters is whether the end result sounds good or not. A few really good accent and phrase kits you can use. Labyrinth by Loop Legend, Elysium by me, Yokai by Prod by Jack and T9C, pretty much any Tri-Freeze melody kit, and Ellis Lost and Prod by Jack's Synth Palace series. Anyway, now that we've covered all the steps and foundations, we can use those to make our own melody from scratch. Let's get it. All right, now, like I said, I'm going into this melody with an intention. Dark, sad, orchestral type shit. I'm gonna be using the Noir Pure Piano, and I'm gonna use the Forte Piano preset. Now, I'm gonna start off in F sharp. Right, so let's start with the triad. Layer note down, skip one note, layer note down, skip one note, layer note down. Let's pitch this middle note up. Let's copy this over, Control B. Let's pitch this back down. Let's bring this note up. Now let's make some bass notes. We're just gonna select these, hold shift, and just duplicate these down. I'm gonna go down one more octave. But instead of making it hit every bar, I'm gonna lengthen these. Then at the end here, we can change it up a bit. Let's go one semitone above to cause some more tension. Now I'm gonna hold Control, select all of these notes, hit Alt S just to make these strum. Instead of trying a bunch of different note combinations like this, just pick a couple notes close together and add those where it makes sense. Copy these over. Let's select these notes and let's hit Alt R to randomize their velocity. And let's Control drag, select these notes, hold Alt, drop their velocity down a bit, and let's hit Alt R again. Then these bass notes, let's drop these. Let's go into the magnet, select none, and let's move these notes manually. Slap on the EQ, and we're just going to remove some of the low end because I'm going to add a bass to fill up the lower frequencies, but we're not going to remove all of the low end. Now just to add even more rhythm, I'm going to chuck in a horn. Let's go into the Elysium kit, bass, and then let's just grab these low strings. And now all we have to do is copy these bass notes into these strings. I think I'm gonna edit the pattern a bit and make it kind of drop. And since this is a one shot, we can do some cool stuff with it, like select this triangle. Now just apply some RC20 to try and get a more dated sound. I'm gonna go into my drum kit and I'm gonna grab this bass. I think that's our lower frequency sorted. Let's apply some halftime to that piano. And let's move this EQ below the halftime because the order of your plugins matters. Now I think what this needs is a pad to kind of fill out the space a little bit, but something subtle. So let's open up and expand too. Let's go to the bright pads. Let's choose this Beneath the Waves preset. Now I'm gonna just copy this pattern that we've got in our piano directly into the pad, and let's see what it's sounding like. Let's try halftime in that pad. Let's go to our piano and let's try throwing on a portal just to see if we can come up with something a bit cooler. Now I'm gonna load up Epic Choir by Spitfire Labs. Let's just grab our piano pattern again, paste it in here. Let's add a kickstart to give it some more rhythm. Set it to half. The best part about making melodies is trying to flip them into something completely different. So I'm gonna mute these basses. I'm gonna right click, consolidate track. This will just render off my melody. Now we can just try reversing it. I'm gonna select my pattern, get rid of it, right click and split by channel. This will just split all the different sounds into their own channel. Now what I'm gonna try doing is using some of the same elements that I had in the unreversed melody. We can make more subtle though. Let's EQ out a bit more. And let's also make that pan with a pancake. Let's try unmuting this piano too. Let's set that to 4 times. And then let's also add a pancake to that, but set it to like 1 bar. Drop the mix a bit. Now this is sounding cool so far, but it's sounding a bit too busy. Let's try halftime in this reverse melody. Get rid of these string one shots that I added before. So now I've just applied some Valhalla vintage verb for some reverb. Let's drop the mix on that a little bit. Now let's make that accent pan with a pancake. Let's grab this perk loop from Elysium. Now that you know how to make your own melodies, why not learn how to mix your beats? I think this video will help you out.